So what happens when you walk away from the thing that you thought you'd never actually walk away from, only to discover God's calling you to build something new? In this episode of the Life After Ministry podcast, I talk with Alicia Lee, the founder and CEO of Faithly, a new digital ecosystem designed specifically for pastors and ministry leaders. Before Faithly, Alicia spent 18 years on Wall Street running a sales desk at Goldman Sachs with some of the world's biggest clients. She loved the work, she was thriving, until God closed a door she never expected to shut. What followed wasn't just a career pivot, it was a spiritual reorientation. We talk hustle, identity, transition, grief, and how Faithly is quietly building a LinkedIn for ministry with the kind of patience and intentionality tech rarely sees. Whether you're deep in transition or still recovering from what didn't go the way you thought, this conversation is packed with wisdom and courage and clarity for the road ahead. Here is Alicia Lee on the Life After Ministry podcast. Alicia Lee, welcome to the Life After Ministry podcast.
Thank you very much, Matt. It's my privilege to be here.
Yeah. Now, right now, it sounds like it's very quiet, but you are in the midst of busy New York, the city that never sleeps.
That's right. I have to keep my curtain down because otherwise no one would be looking at me. They'd be looking at the Freedom Tower behind me. So my office overlooks the Freedom Tower in downtown Manhattan. I've lived in this little square of Manhattan, this little neighborhood for about 15 years with my husband and my 3 kids. I've been in New York for over 20 years now, and nobody is more surprised about that than me. But here I am raising a family, and this is my mission field.
Yeah. So you have an interesting transition. It's not necessarily a ministry transition where you're coming out of ministry. You actually transition coming out of the business world and you went into ministry, which some people would say, well, why would you do something like that? Give us a little bit of your backstory.
Yeah, sure. So out of college, I graduated college in 2004. Out of college, I knew I wanted to work on Wall Street. And I wish I could tell you it was for a really admirable reason. Like I was passionate about the markets, or super interested in financial theory. The truth of the matter is, when I looked around at the students I was studying with, some of the most ambitious kids wanted to go to Wall Street. And there were all these stories about how much money you can make and how fast you could rise through the ranks. And that all just sounded really exciting to me. Like I wanted that. And so I found myself out of college working at Goldman Sachs. And I did that for almost 20 years. I started out in mergers and acquisitions. I did that as a young person for a few years. And before you have any visions in your head, Matt, of like me negotiating deals or like making important things happen. When you're a young person in mergers and acquisitions, it means you bind the pitch books and it means you fetch the coffee and you make sure all the commas and the periods are in the right places. You run complicated financial models, but like you're like doing all of like the level 1 work. I did that for a while. But by the end of my time at Goldman, I was actually running a sales desk on the equities trading floor of Goldman Sachs, which is the largest equities trading floor in the tri-state area.
All I think about is like just somebody like yelling, there's chaos behind them and they're saying, sell, sell, sell. And, I have my context is so much different than that. So I have, it's crazy world that you're coming from.
Yeah. And it was like that sometimes, not all the time. Sometimes when the trading floor is really quiet, you could hear a pin drop, but sometimes it was really exciting. Like when we debuted an IPO, with some of the biggest IPOs that we did, like they debuted on our trading floor and I stood like 10 feet away from Jack Ma when we did the Alibaba IPO, or, I got to hang out with like the Snapchat team when they were doing that IPO. So like, it was like that. Sometimes it was really exciting. And even though I didn't go into it saying like, I love finance or I love Wall Street, I ended up loving it. I really loved my job. I got a lot out of it. I really enjoyed it.
So you're not doing it anymore. Something started to pull you. Were you being pulled or were you being pushed? What happened there?
Definitely pushed. I thought I would spend my whole career there. Like once I found my groove at Goldman, I envisioned my entire career there. And I was there for 18 years before the Lord pushed me out of there in the way that he does. There was a promotion I wanted. And in a conversation with an elder of my church at that time, I was explaining to him all the things I was doing to earn that promotion, how important it was to me. And he looked at me and he said, Alicia, if the Lord wants this promotion for you, it's going to happen like that. And it was as if the Lord just spoke through him in that moment. And he told me, like, pay attention to that because it's true. And if you don't get it, it means this is not the place I want you anymore. And I didn't get too worried about it because I thought I'd get the promotion. I had done everything that one can possibly do. And I was running this business, managing a team. I had all the biggest clients on my desk. Like, if you could think of any large hedge fund or sovereign wealth fund, like, they were my clients. I was running that business. And I thought I've got it locked up. Well, when the time came around, I didn't get the promotion. And I grieved it. I was devastated. I was really, really sad. I knew it was the Lord. Like, that was the gift he gave me and sort of speaking that to me before the time came. So I grieved it with him. I remember walking up and down the West Side Highway, like, in tears, like, God, why? Like, what? And when I was done grieving it, that was when he dropped a new vision on me. And that was when he gave me this vision for Faithly. I don't know any other way to put it. It's not as if I sat down and started whiteboarding, what should I do next? Like, what is it? I never wanted to be an entrepreneur. Like, I've always thought of myself as a really good cog in the wheel. And I don't mean that in like a self-deprecating sense. I'm an excellent cog. Like, I make things move. I make things happen, but I make it happen like in a system and in something that someone else is running and building. And that's how I saw myself. But the Lord just dropped on me this vision out of nowhere for LinkedIn for pastors, LinkedIn for church leaders. And I was so taken by this vision, and just this passion just sprung up within me. I couldn't do anything else. I had started to like think about other things. I thought I would work in fintech or at a hedge fund or another bank. Like, I couldn't consider a single one of those other opportunities because I just had to do this. You had said, Matt, like, Alicia, you went into ministry. That wasn't the moment I went into ministry. I think what I've come to realize is that I was always in ministry.
Amen.
Even when I was working at Goldman Sachs. So that's the story of how the Lord pushed me out.
Now, I remember when I came out of vocational full-time church ministry, and the advice given to me was, well, you got to get your profile updated on LinkedIn. And I'm like, what's LinkedIn and what's a profile? And I had zero clue as to this whole world. So give us the quick, like, I'm sure somebody, let's explain it just for the one person who's listening right now who doesn't even know what LinkedIn is. And why are you creating a totally separate LinkedIn for people in ministry? Why is that even needed?
Yeah, that's a great question because a lot of people don't know what LinkedIn is. The people who use it feel like it's the de facto, like, this is what every working and professional person is on, but it's just not the case. So what LinkedIn is a digital professional networking platform. You go onto LinkedIn, you create a profile, and you connect with the people who are in your professional network. It has replaced the Rolodex. It's everybody's digital Rolodex. And it doesn't just stop there. You don't just connect with people. There are some very practical tools and resources they offer on LinkedIn, like a job board, like a feed where you can share with your network content that is around your profession, around your job. So people have begun, many years ago sharing like, hey, I spoke at this event, or I just got promoted to this, like, I'm learning this in my job. And so it's become kind of like the professional version of Facebook with some tools that are tailored towards jobs, like I said, the job board. What we're creating at Faithly is that, but for ministry, because LinkedIn doesn't work for ministry. It's not just that it doesn't work for ministry. It doesn't work for a lot of niche professions. After the Lord gave me the vision that he gave me for Faithly, I looked back at my career and realized there were actually many reference points in my experience that pointed to this. So, for example, I helped to lead the IPO for a company called Doximity, which is LinkedIn for doctors. I think most people wouldn't realize that LinkedIn doesn't capture a profession like the physician's profession, but it didn't. Physicians never understood what LinkedIn offered to them. But someone about 10 years ago built something just for doctors, and it began to really spin, right? Like that flywheel began to spin, and it really they were able to create an ecosystem just for doctors that really served them with their unique needs. And that's what I'm trying to do for the ministry world.
So the advantage, like, tell me what transformation looks like, my life as a person in ministry before Faithly and what my life looks like after.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I believe that most of the things that you do on a site like LinkedIn or on a site like Faithly, I believe that that a lot of ministry professionals are kind of doing those things already, but in a very analog way. So I think pastors and other church leaders have a desire, and they do connect with other pastors and ministry leaders, but they're doing it like in pockets that are offline. And when they are connecting up online, they're doing it on all sorts of different and disparate technology. There are groups of pastors on Facebook. There's WhatsApp groups for ministry leaders. I hear the cool ones are on Discord, right? So like they're in all these different places. And what we're trying to do is to build technology that can serve those purposes, but be a platform where everyone in ministry can gather, because that'll be where the power really happens, where you're not just seeing a group of 5 or 6 pastors, but that you're able to tap into the thousands, the hundreds of thousands of ministry leaders who are in this country alone, like let alone around the world. So I hope it will amplify the connection and the collaboration that's already happening today, but that can happen, I think, with the help of technology on a much larger scale.
What are you bringing into Faithly that you've learned from the last 20 years? And how are you leveraging this technology? I think ministry oftentimes feels very analog, like you said. It feels very person to person, human to human. And so how do you bring that like kind of meaningful connection into a tech platform?
Yeah, I think what you just said is so important and will set Faithly apart from the other platforms. So the other platforms, they're all about keeping you on the platform. Whatever they can offer you to stay on their platform. Oh, you want to buy something, Matt? Buy it here. You want to transact here. And I just have a completely different philosophy. We want to get people on the platform so that we can all see one another and tap into one another. But I want to get people right off the platform. So one of the things that we've created is like an event registration feature, because as soon as people get on the platform and they get to know each other, or they find others that they maybe already were connected with and now can deepen the connection, they can create events and gatherings and get themselves right back offline, because that analog connection, we don't want to replace it. We want to enhance it, and we want there to be more of it. So that's the first thing I would say. I want to go back to where you started the question, though, which is, what am I bringing into building Faithly that I learned from my time at Goldman? Well, the Lord wastes nothing. He wastes nothing. And all of my experiences at Goldman are informing like how I'm building Faithly. So even going back to how I found my way to Goldman Sachs. So I graduated from Penn State University in 2004 with an economics degree, and I'm very proud of it. But at that time in 2004, that's not where Goldman Sachs was recruiting from. They were recruiting from Harvard, Princeton, and Yale. But I I really just felt this enormous drive to try to get this job that I wanted. And so I thought about, well, what does Penn State have to offer me besides like this great education, this great degree? Penn State's one of the largest universities in the country, and they have an enormous alumni network. So I just started cold calling. I called every single person in that directory I could find that worked on Wall Street. And I didn't have to work at the top firm. Like, it is really the Lord's blessing that I ended up working at the #1 investment bank on Wall Street. Like, I would have been so happy working at Wachovia, like, which, now like is not an independent bank. I would have been so happy working at Wachovia in like the Charlotte branch. Like, I just wanted my foot in the door. But I called and I just introduced myself and I told people, this is my name. This is what I want to do. Here are the things I've prepared to do it. Like, do you think could you tell me more about Wachovia or Wells Fargo or Bear Stearns or JP Morgan? Or like, can you tell me more about it? Like, what does it take to get into your interview process? And a lot of people don't call you back. A lot of people don't have any help to give you, but one person, it just takes one person to say, oh, yeah, okay. You sound really driven and you sound like, sure. Like I'll connect you with like this recruiter or this HR person. And I bring that hustle into what I'm building because, I wasn't a Christian at the time. Not when I was in my early 20s trying to find my way onto Wall Street. But I can see that through a different lens now, like what the Lord put in me, which is parable of the talents, like what I have, I want to be able to use to the fullest. And when I started Faithfully, I started cold calling pastors. Like, I don't have a pastor's network. I didn't have 1,000 pastors' friends. I did serve as an elder at my very small local church, but that is not a network of ministry professionals. So I just did what I did 20 years ago. I started looking at the directories of like, okay, what are the largest denominations? Like, and who are the pastors in those denominations that are like maybe in my state and like willing to pick up the phone? And so I had a lot of conversations, a lot of pastors I'd never met before. And I said, hey, this is what I'm thinking about doing. Like, what do you think? And that was an important part of my like sort of getting off the ground process. So that's a really long-winded way of answering your question, or starting to, which is like, I bring hustle. I bring preparation. That's one of the things I learned from Goldman is that you don't do anything without preparing. You don't go into a meeting with a chief investment officer of a big asset manager without preparing. You don't come onto a podcast with Matt Davis without preparing. Like, you don't do anything without preparing. It sends such a strong signal to those that you're interacting with. So anyway, those are some of my lessons learned that I bring into every single thing that I do as I'm building Faithfully.
It's amazing because, not only are you CEO and founder of this new venture, this new startup, but that hustle, like it's not like you go back home and you just get to, your meal is ready for you. You're a mom of 3 little people. They're 2, 5, and 7. So
Yes.
You're in what we call the minivan years. So how do you make all of that? We used to, in those years, and we love our kids, so don't totally dismiss what I'm about to say, but we used to say that 4 p.m. every day was arsenic hour. Either you wanted to take it or give it. The kids were just driving me crazy. But how do you manage all of that and stay sane in the midst of a startup?
I will probably have a more coherent answer for you when I'm out of it. Right now, I'm just drinking through the fire hose. Like, I know the Lord has called me to each thing that I'm doing, right? Building Faithfully, being a wife, and being a mother to 3 kids. I'm a leader at my church. I mentioned to you before we started recording, I was guest preaching at my in-laws' church in New Jersey this weekend. Like, the Lord's called me to a lot, and it can be sometimes there are moments where I feel a little bit overwhelmed. Like, how am I supposed to do the 25 things on my list? But I take a deep breath and like knowing the Lord has called me to it, like that sort of keeps me focused. It gives me peace in moments where it gives me peace in like arsenic hour. I'm going to remember that. It's so good. And that's really it. I mean, I have help with my children. My parents live really close by in New Jersey, and that's huge. Here in New York, it's very common. I don't know about like where you live, but it's very common to have a nanny help you with your children. Like I have all of that. My older children now are in school. And so like I have the time that I need. I have the resources that I need. And just remembering that I'm called to it is really the key thing.
Yeah. So, in your transition, obviously you're on a podcast called Life After Ministry, and we're working with people in transition. But what are some of the lessons that you have been learning in this transition season? And ultimately where I want to go is the question after the question is that this is, faithfully is not, 10 years in and everything's like, you're really still very much launching. So, but in this transition season, like how long have you been transitioning? Like when was that last day
Mm.
at Goldman Sachs, and how long has that been? And how have you learned to kind of retool and reinvent your life since that moment?
Yeah, that's a great question. So as I said, I realized I was already in ministry. So I don't think that there was this big moment where it was like suddenly I'm in ministry. I've been serving my church for 10 years in all sorts of different capacities, leading small groups, leading Bible studies, eventually joining our board of elders. And I'm on the teaching team of our church. And that was already happening even while I was at Goldman. And, and so I don't know that there was a huge transition moment from that standpoint. But there was a huge transition moment into this like new identity as a founder, as someone who was starting something new. And I think I felt a lot of fear and anxiety about it that I didn't realize at the time. And the way that my fear and anxiety expresses itself is in like working too much and not like I'll give you an example. I usually say this in a really proud way, but I'm saying it in a shamefaced way because in this moment, because I left Goldman Sachs on a Monday and I got myself into a WeWork on a Tuesday to start Faithfully. That is insane. Like I spent 18 years working my butt off on Wall Street. I could have taken a couple of weeks off. Like I could have taken a couple months off. I could have taken a year off. But I think in that moment, I was so anxious about who I was if I wasn't running a business on Wall Street that I needed to make sure that I claimed my new identity as a founder immediately. And in hindsight, I wish I could have just given myself a hug and said, it's okay. The Lord's given you this idea. You can take time off, you can take a breath, and you can be without building and creating and jumping into things. Does that
Yeah.
answer your question,
No,
Matt?
that's so good. And I want like our Christian leaders who are listening to really hear that, because you've spent a good season of your life building up this identity that you belong to everybody else and you have to serve everybody else. And that I am a pastor, I am a executive director of a nonprofit, whatever that is. And looking for, and I think sometimes I hear a lot of folks that will say, I feel like the clock is ticking. And we got to figure out stability for, paying the bills and all of that kind of stuff. But there is a little bit, I understand the push for that to be able to support your family and be intentional with that. But I almost like want to push back a little bit and say, but don't push your soul. Don't push
Yeah,
the work that's needed in that transition season to be able to say, all right. And really, I think you don't have to be a pastor or somebody in ministry to have your identity all screwed up. You can do that anywhere. It's a very human experience. And so,
yeah,
one thing I really had to get straight was, I am not what I do. I am not what others say about me. I am not what I have, but I am a child of God. And even though I
that's
preached
right.
that message for years and years, when you are actually in that transition season, you really come face to face with who am I? And
Yeah,
the only thing that you can bank on is that we are the beloved, we are his workmanship. And so if I can, hold on to that, I think that that's important. And it's good for us to know this is not just a pastoral problem. This is
Yeah.
a human condition for anybody who has allowed something or someone to hijack our identity.
Yeah, that's right. That's so good. And I think, part of the problem is like we don't think about that, right? We don't grapple with that until we're in the moment of transition. But if while you're doing the thing, like while you are a pastor or like working on Wall Street, you can do that work with the Lord. I hopefully like when it comes time to transition, like you won't make the common mistakes, right?
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. I talked to somebody yesterday who talked about not just mental health, but he talked about mental fitness. Like, don't
Mm.
wait till the wheels are coming off the
Yeah.
train before you start addressing these things. But oftentimes, we don't see the light until we feel the heat. And so
Yeah.
to do some of that characterological soul work that God is inviting us into, get yourself a spiritual director or a good counselor that can see you and start having those conversations.
Yeah, that's so good. It doesn't mean that there's not going to be like a huge sense of loss and grief when you do step into a season of transition. As I mentioned, like I really I had to grieve when I left my job. But I do think softer landings can be possible. I think they're possible.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell me what's next for Faithly. What's the season that you're going into here?
Yeah. So, you had asked about, how do I do all the things that I'm currently doing between starting Faithly and motherhood and everything else. And I wonder if that's one of the reasons why the Lord handed the idea for Faithly to me, because it is a really patient build. And there's no quick viral marketing scheme that is going to get this off the ground in the ministry world. And I think this is true to a certain extent in a lot of different industries, but in the ministry world, like none other, it is an ecosystem and a network of relationships that is like built on. It's like everything moves at the pace of relationship. It's like all based on sort of trust and all of that, and that takes time to build. And so we're 3 years into that. Like if you had asked me at the start, where would I be in 3 years? I thought I would be much further ahead than this. And there are certainly days where it's easy for me to say, but if I just did this or I just invested that, like we'd be twice as big or 3 times as big. I think the Lord's timing is the Lord's time. Like his timing is on this. His hand is on this. And it is a patient build. That is the nature of building even a digital network, like any network, I think, in the ministry world, but even a digital network. Anyway, going back to why I think the Lord handed it to me, it doesn't make sense for me to do this the way I did things at Goldman. It doesn't make sense for me to work 12 hours a day. This is not going to be any bigger or better. It's not going to grow any faster. It's a patient build. And so I am able to like pick up my kids after school, or I am able to like jump into their activities. It is like sort of, it's like connected in that way, the, what is needed to build something like Faithfully, as well as how I can do all that the Lord is calling me to. And so what's next for Faithfully? Well, patiently building at the pace that I can, at the pace that is required for this new thing that we're growing, means that after 3 years of building, we have 3,000 users. And we are really, really excited to welcome sort of the next wave of users. So we have been very quietly building. Very few people have heard of us. We didn't go out there with a big splashy campaign or do a ton of digital marketing. Like we're only starting to do these things. And we are finally at a place where we've talked to enough ministry leaders, or I've interacted with enough people across enough denominations, across enough ministry roles, where I feel like we finally have a handle on what are the tools and features that will set Faithfully apart. Like, how will this bless ministry leaders in a way that LinkedIn never did? I feel like we finally know what that is. And so we're doing 2 things as a result. One, we are going to go out there and tell the world, here we are. And we're doing it in September at the Sing Conference, which is a big ministry conference that's put on by the Getty Music family in Nashville. We're one of the main sponsors of the event, and we're going to tell the 6,000 or 7,000 ministry leaders that are gathering, here we are, and we built this to bless you. At the same time, we're going to release our mobile app. Up until now, we haven't had a mobile app. We wanted to wait until we had a stable set of tools and features that defined us as the ministry platform. We have that now. So we're right now, like we've rolled up our sleeves. We are knee deep in expressing that in our mobile app, which will be ready for download on September 1st.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, I'm one of the 3,000 and getting used to the ecosphere that you've built, and it's very intuitive and it's very beautiful. And I encourage people. It's so hard in this digital world. Like, you say like, there's just so many platforms, right? So now we have a platform that posts to all of our other platforms, right? So, I have this many on Instagram, and you got Facebook and LinkedIn, and now, but there is something good about being intentional about connecting with the body of Christ. We need each other. We cannot operate in silos. And so I just want to encourage, especially for the folks who are listening, likely you're in some stage of transition, and that feels very isolating. And you might not have the 3-year gap here of building something. I mean, really what we're doing with ministry transitions, we are almost 3 years in, and it's a slow and patient growth that it takes to really kind of organically, you can throw lots of digital ad spend and try to get the word out there, or you can build something that is going to be sustainable and something that's going to be helpful. And so that's what I love about what you're doing. How do people where do they go? Is it a website? It's going to be an app, but how do they get connected?
Yeah. Thank you, Matt. Folks can find it at www.faithly, faithly.co. It's .co. I learned early on the M stands for money, and so we couldn't quite afford the .com, but folks can find us at faithly.co, and they'll see a fully up and running platform that has thousands of ministry leaders where they're able to connect and message with other leaders, where they can post jobs on a job board where they can apply to the jobs they see. They can form new ministry groups or join one that already exists on the platform. And those groups, by the way, allow people to create their own Faithly within Faithly. It's like your own sort of ministry ecosystem within the platform we've built. You can create events and invite people to RSVP to those events. You can even charge money for it if your event, is ticketed. You can ticket through Faithly. We have a Stripe integration. So there's a really robust set of tools and features that we are so excited to see people experimenting with every single day. And for pastors who are considering a transition, or maybe they're in the midst of a transition, Faithly is for you too. We use the word pastor as shorthand because it's just easier and kind of rolls off the tongue, but I'm careful to say ministry leader as often as I can get it in there, because this kingdom ecosystem of ours, it's not just the church. There are so many amazing Christian nonprofits out there that are doing like hands and feet work of Jesus, and many of them would love to have former pastors or current pastors partner with them. In fact, some of our most popular job openings on our job board, they're for Christian nonprofits. And so, it could be a very natural next step for someone who's leaving pastoral ministry. We've got Christian colleges and seminaries who are starting to get active on Faithly. And so it's just hopefully an ecosystem that current as well as maybe transitioning pastors can tap into to get connected to figure out the next steps.
I love it. Friends, go check out Faithly, Alicia Lee. Thank you for being on the Life After Ministry podcast. Good things ahead. I know that we will have a long-term ministry, friendship, and relationship, and thankful for what you're doing.
Thank you so much, Matt. This is really, it's such an honor. I really love what you're doing with ministry transitions, and look forward to many conversations and a very long friendship.
So you don't have to be in vocational ministry to have your identity hijacked by what you do. It's a human problem. It's a human condition. But the more grounded we are in being the beloved of God, the more resilient we become when roles and titles and platforms shift. Alicia's story reminds us that the calling doesn't always come with clarity up front. But when God calls you to build, he equips you for the long and patient work ahead. If you're in transition or you're even just questioning what's next, go explore faithfully.co. It's more than a digital Rolodex. It's a place to be seen and known and supported by others who get it. Thanks for listening. We are with you. You are not alone. If you want to talk to us at Ministry Transitions about an upcoming decision that you have to make with your team or a decision that you have to make for yourself, let us know. We're happy to talk.